Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, to the oNiD Racing YouTube channel. We come to you live from a rather damp Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. That is the best Italian accent I have ever done. Could someone please clip that and send it over to me? I am on Twitter as @DCWrestle. My name is David. Welcome to the stream. It is round 4 of the oNiD Multiclass World Cup, and I am joined as ever by the man with the plan, the man bringing you all the goodness throughout this evening's eventualities. Trinket to Tash. Trinket, good evening to you. It is lovely to be back. And it's quite nice to see a bit of rain for once. I like a bit of adverse weather conditions.
Oh, I love it. I love a bit of rain, but it's painful to see it at Monza, because the last time I drove at Monza was coincidentally, I think, a month ago, because the Monza endurance race is happening right now, and I was doing the last one, and in the middle of that Monza endurance race, I had to go off to do the Sunday League, which was a wet Monza.
So you're getting PTSD looking at this then?
Yeah, it wasn't a great race, because it was this light rain where it just stayed damp the whole race, so wet and dry tyres were about the same pace, but your wet tyres would die super fast and your dry tyres would just never get anywhere.
Yeah, it'd be cold the whole way through. Yeah, it's a tricky balance, and I suppose it's probably not too dissimilar to what these guys have got at the moment, because it's a damp track for the first part of qualifying, probably for most of qualifying.
It did start out wet, but it has gone.
I was going to say, yeah, it's gone damp within half a lap. So all of these GT3 cars for the first 15 minutes of qualifying, putting some rubber down, and as a result, drying the track a little bit. Welcome from over you tuning in, by the way. Welcome to Mercy Caller and Ben22 Racing in the chat already. Why do I see a damn Slim Chickens livery? There's not one in the server, but for those of you who are wondering, it is the thumbnail, or it's on the thumbnail for the stream. So if you come back and see it on the homepage, you'll know exactly what they're referring to. Young can't make the next can't race the next 3, but he's enjoying the stream from his hotel room. That feels to me, like a little bit of a flex. I think he's showing off a little bit.
Yeah, it depends where he is, because being in a hotel could mean anything. It could be, I've gone to visit my parents in my hometown and I stayed in a hotel, so I'm just vibing, or I'm in Italy basking in the sun.
Yes, very, very good point indeed, Joanne. Let us know where you are. Let's hope that you don't lose too much ground in the championship. Talking to the championship, GT3-wise, Adam Gardner leading the way. The aforementioned Jeroen Jongen is in second place, and Alex Shahabi is rounding out third at the top 3 in that one. GT3 AM, Ash Coupland of Pole Simsport leads that one. Matt Holman in second place, and then Sergei Felenko is in third. And then in the GT4 class, Dan Hearn now leads the way in that one after 2 race wins in a row. Sorry, no, it was a second place and a win last time at Suzuka. My apologies. Peter Jelinek in third and second, and then Carlos Plaza in third place after not doing the race last week, but it is in the server. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up. In the meantime, though, we can see some times going on the board. It's said and Tut at the top of the leaderboard at the moment. I think there's a 152.4, I think I saw there. It's going to be difficult to tell, really, for the first couple of laps, isn't it? Because I think you probably find that most people are going to be kind of just finding their feet in these conditions. It was wet in practice, but it's a very different ball game when you go out there for the first time in a new session, isn't it?
Oh, I had a little bit of hiccup there, but yeah, it was mostly just consistently wet through practice and through the driver's briefing, where they were all sat in the pits. It stopped raining and went to greasy, so a few drivers went out in greasy conditions. But I think this is the first time they're actually driving in damp conditions, at least in terms of this server. They might have done some practice. They might have some experience from last month, as I mentioned.
Yeah, anyone who did that Sunday League race a couple of months ago, going to be maybe a little bit more well prepped, although I would like to think they've probably done a little bit of more practice elsewhere between now and then. If this is the only races they've done in the last month, then I'd be very surprised, especially because most of them were here last week as well. But yeah, 15 minutes is the first part of qualifying, so that would be the GT3 as you can see on track at the moment. Raymond Ryu sitting in P15, the man on your screens at the moment, did a 154.9. Looks like we've got 1 or 2 more drivers to set a lap time who are yet to put time on the board. Matt Holman being one of them, and I think I noticed another driver down the bottom end as well. Once that first 15's out of the way, as soon as it hits 15 minutes, anyone who's on a lap can finish it. Then the GT4s will come out and they will finish off the session, and then it's as you were from the last few rounds, as that's Gabriel Shimoda's, I think, going a little bit wide through the second of the Lesmos. It'll be GT4s. They'll run to the end, and then we've got a 60-minute race with a 50-minute pit window as ever. Minimum 25 seconds worth of fuel. We'd be waiting for a little while, wouldn't we, Drink? If it was a 25-minute fueling window, it would probably mean a relatively boring race from yours and my perspective, I would have thought.
Hop out, have a shower, grab some lunch, hop back in.
Stick on the stream holding, or just stick the auto cam on. We'll go down a natter somewhere else. As Miles Dixon now goes to the top of the timing board. Alan Zildzovic sits second place at the moment. Seven Tut's still in third. Hasn't yet improved his time. It was a 1:52.9 that lap that he put on the board to begin with. My apologies for thinking it was a little bit quicker. Hello to Apex Vest in the chat, who says hello there. Hello to you, good sir. See, there is Seven Tut going through the first of the two Lesmos. So difficult to get these right in these damp conditions, isn't it? Because the AstroTurf, as you come out, I mean, we saw Shimos a minute ago, so easy to put your foot down early because you want to, because you've got a nice big long back straight coming up, but a little bit too early, you catch that kind of green AstroTurf in the wrong way, and you'll be sliding off any which way possible. Yeah, losing a lot of time.
Even just the traditional racing line, you're throwing it up onto the curbs on the exits, which is already a slippery, dangerous business on a wet track like this. But getting all four wheels off track onto curb and AstroTurf, it's going to be very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be something I have to be a little bit careful with, contesting with the bumps and the greasiness of the outer extremities of the track. Most of them taking a relatively similar line to what you'd expect to see on this. No such use of the karting line. New pole time, another new pole time. I think, oh no, it was Miles Dixon before, wasn't it? I thought I saw that change twice then. That was weird. So Seven Tut 52.7 now, so he gains a couple of tenths, puts himself currently on provisional pole as Henry Handy comes through Ascari onto the back straight. I think that's Johnny Ashley just ahead of him on track in the, I think it's the Sol Bentley, if I'm not mistaken.
It is indeed.
Yes, two Sol represented British manufacturers on the grid this evening. Johnny Ashley in the number 9 Bentley, as you saw there, and then Johnny Seville in the number 2 Jag, who's actually doing a very good job, to be fair. It shows you how much the top speed of the Jag does itself a bit of service on a track like Monza, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've been Johnny Seville being probably one of the best drivers in oNiD community. I mean, he drives for LFM now. He's outstandingly rapid, but he's just taking that Jaguar and having fun with it. We saw him in the midfield last race, having a good time, I guess, but he's obviously showing the strengths of the Jag here at Monza with that speed.
I was messaging him last week after the stream. Apparently, he finds it's quicker to drive with no traction control on.
Oh, I've seen him drive a few cars without traction control. I popped into a practice server one time and he was rocking the Ginetta run without traction control. I'm like, oh.
Goodness me. That is insane. I've driven a few times with him, and well, I say driven with him, driven at least probably half a lap behind him, and that was pretty much all I could do. It's quite a damning indictment of the lack of pace I have compared to him, but there you go. That's why they get paid the big bucks to do these sorts of things, at least.
Yes, I see them, I acknowledge their existence, and then they're gone.
Yeah, I normally see them coming through my rearview mirror with a blue flag accompanying them as well. So tends to be.
Thibaut Guertin with a great improvement there, about 10 positions or so.
Yeah, well, I think it was about P21, 22, wasn't he? So yeah, good improvement for him. Top 10 separated by just over a second and a bit. So 1.232 the gap across them. Very close up at the top, 0.02 of a second between Tut and Dixon, who are your current front row lockout as it stands. Colin Cameron, friend of yours, of course, Trinket, coming through Parabolica to finish off another lap.
Got a nice improvement.
I was going to say, I'm assuming you've not just come to him out of pure personal bias, and he is actually making an improvement. We'll see what it's going to be as he crosses the line, sticks nice and close to the line on the inside. There you go, yeah, goes just above Guertin and Mike Brown. P11, identical time to Knowles just ahead as well.
We're seeing an identical time again. Oh,
of course, yeah, we saw it. Was it last week or the week before? I can't remember. I know we saw it, but
was it us last week at?
I think it was.
Two identical pole times.
I know you do a hell of a lot of broadcasting, so
I did
if
one
it
other
helps,
on
it was definitely
Thursday.
one that we did. Yeah. No, it was definitely one that you and I did. I know. I can tell you that much. Whether it was last week or the week before last, that's a different question. I think it was last week, though.
Just going through the field, seeing who's improving. All GT3s have set a lap time. Tut, Dixon, and Zildzovic are all minusculely up on their lap time, but not even a tenth of a second. Oh no, Zildzovic has just gained 4/10 through that section alone, and it's all gone. That must have just been a bit of a bit of a moment there.
I'm not surprised Dixon wasn't improving much. I can see, I think I know his car number. Yeah, 94. He's only just going through the first chicane anyway. So I think when you caught the lap time, I think he literally just started the lap, which makes sense.
It was like just under about a tenth slow when he started the lap.
Yeah.
And it's just been kind of equalising. So the top three drivers matching their pace. They might find time to gain a little bit more speed. Seville currently 10th up right now. Dropping though, must be getting quite a bit of a slippery exit.
Yeah, it's especially I wonder if he's still not got any. I mean, it looks like looking at the back end, I guess he's either got barely any, if at all, any traction control aid on that Jag at the moment. He's there you go, a little back end kicking out there. One of his former teammates, I think that is Leighton Austin. In fact, that's Miles Dixon ahead of him in that pole stint Friday. It's one of the Mercs ahead of them. That is one of the Connexus Motorsport cars, I think. Seeing that livery, can't see the number though, so I can't tell you who it is. But yeah, going through the last couple of corners, not going to get a tow. In fact, Miles Dixon's going to get a massive tow down the back straight, which is going to do him the world of good. Hopefully he doesn't get caught up in the final corner though, as we've got 2 minutes left of the GT3 part of qualifying. So these guys are going to get at least one more, possibly two more laps in. I wouldn't think Seville would. He'll probably get the one, but Dixon and Co might get the second one if they're lucky.
Yeah, there's just the one more for Seville, but he does set a great lap there. Slots himself into third.
Wow, that is seriously impressive.
The one thing I was going to add on to the no traction control thing is what better way to perfect throttle control than driving a Jag with no traction control in the wet at Monza.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, he's certainly not going to improve because he's just been massively hampered by that Porsche coming out of the pit lane. So he won't improve, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah,
Tut coming down the back straight.
Managed to jump Tut a moment ago.
Of course, yeah, they were around, weren't they? Yeah, I was thinking that time it changed.
But Tut is up on his lap right now.
I'll see what he does as he comes over the line. Of course, different classes, so not necessarily fighting for points when it comes to the race itself. For those of you who are new, the white banners on the left-hand side are the Pro class, the red ones are the GT3 AM, and then you've got the GT4s, which you can't see at the moment. They are the silver banners on the number sports on the left-hand side. They've got a little blue triangle in the corner. Again, the more you know. He goes across the line, doesn't improve in the end, lost a little bit of time, but he's going to have another crack at it. That is Henry Handy ahead of him, who I think has just improved as well. Zildzovic comes through the final corner.
Oh, if he can hold this is a pole lap.
Let's see as he comes across the line. He's keeping a nice tight exit out of Parabolica. He's going to stick nice and close to the line. Doesn't want to go too far across and invalidate the lap. Doesn't.
2 milliseconds.
Wow, wait. 2 thousandths of a second. Zildzovic puts it on provisional pole. Where's Miles Dixon? Miles Dixon hasn't finished his lap. I just saw him yellow at Parabolica. He is back in the pits. He shall not improve. He won't get back out to put another lap time in either. So it's going to be down to Seddon Tut, Johnny Seville and Handy, potentially Leighton Austin, depending on how much time they've got on the table. But lap time in Johnny Seville in the pits, so he won't do another lap time. As Adam Gardner comes through Parabolica. Alex Shahabi in the pits, Ollie Knowles in the pits, Mike Brown in the pits, Sean Hunt in the pits, Johnny Ashley in the pits, Dave Jalecki in the pits now as well. As Adam Gardner comes across the line, does improve but not by enough to make up any positions in the end. So he's about 8/10 off. You can see Gabriel Chamois there as well. Seddon Tut coming through Parabolica. He's got a car just in front of him. Not sure how much that'll impact him. That is Henry Handy as they come out of Ascari. Does manage to hold on to the lap.
It is impacting him a fair bit. He was half a second up going through Ascari there, now down to 3/10. But he only needs 0.02 of a second.
Yeah, 200 seconds again goes to Parabolica. He's going to hope that Hanley doesn't cause him too much difficulty coming out the final corner. They're both going to put a good lap time on the board, you'd think, because they're pretty close to coming across
He's
the line
dropping
anyway.
that time rapidly, but it's still enough. Puts himself in the top.
There you go, yeah, 10th of a second in the end. I mean, it makes that 2,000th of a second slightly less good than it was before. As we see Nick Manders coming through the final corner again. General Scrub, for those of you who know, has changed his name since SGP has gone live, or doesn't elect to finish a lap time, which is an interesting choice. Presumably, he was quite a fair way off.
It was about equaling his previous pace.
Oh. Interesting decision to abort that lap there. I'm not sure whether he's had a message to stop it, but it looked like he would have got across the line in time. So now we turn ourselves to slightly less nimble machinery in the form of the GT4s. So you can see all of them, pretty much all of them anyway, careening down the back straight towards Parabolica. I'm surprised, Tricky, they're not really giving themselves a lot of space in front, are they? Although now we're starting to see them slow down a little bit, but it's all quite compact at the moment, which is going to prove interesting.
Yeah, it's always very interesting how people manage their space in qualifying, because some people, you know, they come out in a queue and then they sit by the final corner for ages waiting for the biggest gap. They just really don't need to.
No, the thing I don't get is that when everyone just decides to wait to the final corner anyway, I'd rather make myself some space before. Because then you get to the point where you get to the final corner, and then, like you say, you're almost at a standstill, and you're probably losing tyre temperature because you're not doing anything. You kind of just sat there as slow as possibly can be. There you go. So General Scrub, yeah, couldn't put the lap together. He's still P11, I think I saw in the end then. And then Mercy Caller, that quali was awful. You'll have to remind me, Tricky, if you remember who these people are, their actual names.
Mercy Caller is Sam Page.
Ah, yes. See, I've seen the name. You've said that before, and I can't remember. I've got a terrible memory of these sorts of things. And I'm having a fortnight off when I go off on my jollies, so I'll have definitely forgotten them by the time we come back in a couple of weeks' time as well. So you guys will still be here. So don't disappear off on us on the stream as well. Make sure you're still here next Sunday and the one after that, and then another 4 after that. It's 10 rounds, isn't there? So lots to look forward to.
Quite the lengthy one. And for the next season, I will not be streaming or commentating. I will be racing because I want to race.
Yeah, I'm kind of with that at the moment. I keep thinking to myself, I want to find a series I can drive in, and then I can't find the time because I've got other stuff like this which I want to make sure I don't drop out on, and then end up finding that I've got no time to compete in a series. So I end up just doing one-off events instead, and just don't get the same level of satisfaction from them. I don't find. But there you go, Dan Hearn then coming through the final corner. The 104 car, as I said before, currently leading at the GT4 Championship ahead of Carlos Plaza. Puts the first lap time in, goes pole position in the GT4 class with a 201.5. And that's Ian Hall and Scott Ticehurst currently sitting behind them. Ralph Fest comes across the line. He puts himself up into, what's that, 6th in class. Carlos Plaza, the championship protagonist, second in the championship at the moment. What's his first time going to be? It's going to be a 203.3. So a little bit of time, presumably you'd think, on the table for Mr. Plaza, as Martin Thorpe now is the next driver to come through Parabolica, and that is Habibovic just behind him on track as well. We'll see what Martin's going to put on the table. It comes through in the BMW M4, one of the faster GT4s in a straight line, you would argue, Trinket. So potentially well suited for this kind of track, you'd think.
I'm not too familiar with the top speeds of GT4 cars. I just know the Ginetta does not. The answer is just no.
Those two will struggle. Well, look, to be fair, I think I got that fact about 5 years ago when the GT4s first came out. So knowing me, it's probably changed since then. Either way, Martin got a little bit of work to do. He's currently sitting on P6 in class. Dan Hearn, as you mentioned, still at the top of that, as Ian Hall decides to go does a little bit of grass tracking down the back straight, or kind of mini back straight up towards Ascari.
Got 2 QRT cars in a row.
It's QRT's a go-go. See you coming through there. Just gets the back end a little bit sideways. Well, we've got that's a Porsche and Alpine, isn't it? So understandably you put the Porsche. Yeah, understandably you put the Porsche in front because then it can tow the Alpine along to a certain extent.
But you can see
Although saying
how
that,
Ian Hall is staying on the wet side of the track there, so he's clearly running wet tyres, and you can see the lack of marks on the side of the tyres. So he's obviously running wet tyres. I'm surprised I didn't take note of what drivers were using, because I think it might just be a bit too wet to run dries, but it would be feasible, I would think.
yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued to know how you can tell the difference because I've just always just guessed what they're on. I didn't realise there was like a noticeable way of telling whether they're on a dry or a wet tyre from a broadcast perspective.
The dry tyres have a yellow marking on the sidewall, and wet tyres are blank. So of course the dry tyres have the Pirelli symbol in the P0, and it's the yellow line. You can see it rotate around.
Yeah.
But on
I
wet
can't
tyres,
believe
it's
I've
blank.
never
So
thought
yeah,
of that.
you can see Harry Brooks has a yellow mark on his tyre, so he's running on dries. I
Oh
believe.
my word!
So am I looking at right? Just about. It's very
it's a
hard to see.
little bit difficult to tell, isn't it? I imagine you probably would have tell going through some of the slower corners for sure. Oh my god, you've just changed my broadcast life, Trinket. I cannot thank you enough. I had no idea. Every time you go onto it, I look at it and I think, I don't know. I've no idea what they're running because you can't see it. Obviously, you don't get the data for it, do
It's
you?
your Dupont livery, yeah, it is. It's the
Dupont.
It's a Hibibovich, yeah, that's a Hibibovich
Yeah.
behind. Oh, as Harry Brooks goes off.
Oh dear.
He was
That is not
quite up on his time there. That's unfortunate. That would have put him up maybe even into second place.
So he's got about 6/10 to get up to Ian Hall in second, who's currently in the pits.
So yeah,
As Carlos
for
Plaza
example, you can see
leaving.
the Mercedes there with the yellow tyre balls.
Yes, that is a dry tyre. There
And
you go.
you can see
Oh,
Harry
goodness
Brooks
me.
was on dry tyres as well. So
Yeah, you can
Definitely
just about see it, can't you?
yeah, and you can see that his pace was he was improving, and he would have put himself second place had he kept or improved that time. So the
It's
pace
definitely
delta
on the
between the
borderline,
two
isn't
is very borderline at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely almost a sort of crossover period, if you want to call it that. As Martin Thorpe, it's interesting to see Martin Thorpe and Scott Tysos there taking very different lines through the first Lesmo. Yeah, Paige saying, yeah, would have been should say W or D next to the name would be easier. It certainly would.
Yes,
And sadly, I don't have a direct line into Kunos. Otherwise, I would be on the blower and letting them know as there's Dan Hearn going quicker once more. Not by a huge amount, only a tenth or so, but does eke that gap out to 8/10 ahead of Ian Hall. Everyone in GT4 on track except for Harry Brooks at the moment. I wonder if he's just having a little bit of a tweak of the setup, maybe just to make it a little bit more stable on those dry tyres. Perhaps.
Yeah, there's not a lot you can change on a GT4 car. You're quite limited in your setup options because a lot of things are limited off to you.
Yeah, very, very true indeed. Maybe just turn the TC down and see if you can get some heat into those rear tyres at some point. As Martin Thorpe crossed the line, does improve by a decent amount. Only actually equates to one position though. Goes 0.02 of a second quicker than Scott Tyser, so puts himself between the two QRT cars. Here is Ralph Vest with, I think that's Luke Sherlock in behind him, either that or Elvin Blomqvist. I can't see the number on there, which is a little bit of a shame. 33, so that's Blomqvist.
Yes, I believe. He just went off. But I believe Luke Sherlock is in the oNiD Racing Stronger livery.
Yes, you are absolutely
nice
right.
Bright blue.
Yeah, I love that colour on there. It's just beautiful. Don't know what it is about it. I think it just is a very, very nice version of a colour blue. There's plenty out there, and that's one of my personal favourites.
Not one you see very often because it's usually referred to as baby blue, and people don't want to associate with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nobody wants to have that kind of emasculating colour on a car livery, but I think it's a beautiful liveried car. Obviously, saying that in the least biased way possible, considering who is hosting the stream for this evening. But
well, you are not officially a part of it, so you can say as you please.
Exactly. That felt like a very backhanded compliment, to be completely honest with you. But I understand your point. There you go. See what Badem Hibivovic puts in. Does improve. Again, there's quite a few bigger gaps in the GT4s, isn't there? So you can make an improvement, but it doesn't necessarily equate to an improvement in lap time. Improvement in position, rather.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of a spread through the field as drivers obviously trying to get used to these conditions, trying to squeeze everything they can without making a mistake, is just getting on that curb or running a little bit wide, and that's it. It's pretty much right over.
You can definitely tell the track has improved there, can't you? Because I mean, you wouldn't normally expect to see an 8 and a bit second gap between the fastest GT4 and the fastest GT3. So there's clearly been some improvement, although it's still teaming it down. It's not enough to stop them from making any serious improvements. See Carlos Plaza coming through Ascari sideways through the exit, which is
still
not the
valid.
ideal line, you'd argue. Still valid. That's a tough one, isn't it? Because I don't know where the... It's stupid, isn't it? You think, oh, it's all 4 wheels over the line. But I feel like the exit of Ascari is a slightly different track limit point. But could be wrong.
It's like Nürburgring, where you can run quite a bit onto the AstroTurf. I can't remember the corner name, but it's only 1, 2, 3. It's like turn 5 or 6.
You're on about the one as you come out of the kind of the infield circuit. Oh, where's he going?
Improving.
I don't think that was valid though.
It was not.
Right. It came right the way across the start-finish line as he did. A 2:01.4 would have put him second, I'm sure of it.
2:01.4 would have been 2/10 behind Daniel Hearn.
Yeah, that was really weird. Because I just watched him go really far to the right. And did exactly what we saw some of the GT3 cars doing, but just went too far.
I was visualising Nürburgring in my head, so I completely missed it. Got quite a few drivers improving on track now. Who's closest to the finish line? That would be Brooks.
Yeah, Harry Brooks needs to make a bit of an improvement. We saw him, he was a few tenths up before, wasn't he, on the last valid lap he was doing, but then went wide at the first of the 2 Lesmos in the Le Plan car.
Oh, I see him running. I see him running on the water there. He's obviously trying to get water temperature into some wet tyres now.
Yeah, I was going to say he's clearly changed his tune, hasn't he?
Yeah,
see whether it does him any benefits.
Well, he is up about 8 tenths. Oh, bearing on 9 tenths here, not about 8 tenths. So, yep, definitely improving.
Possibly P2. You'd think if he keeps it together. Yeah, there you go. P2 for Harry Brooks. A 2:01.8. Still quite a way behind. Well, I was going to say quite a way behind. P1 is still P1, but he's now P3 in class because Scott Ticehurst separates the other Alpine and the Porsche of Dan Hearn. He's 3 tenths behind. Carlos Plaza yeets over that second curve at Ascari.
No, it was round 2. It was round 2 for him to try and set that lap time because he's over a second up on his lap now. Let's see if he learned from his mistakes and doesn't try and take a very awkward line nearly crossing the pit entry.
Yeah, no imagining the Nürburgring this time, please. Keep an eye on it and see what he does and see if he keeps it on the straight and narrow. As Ian Hall improves as well, small improvement. Martin Thorpe Corona pit lane, so he will not improve. His qualifying is done, as is that of Badam Habibovic and Ralph Vest. And there you go, Carlos Plaza. A 2:01.7 would have been enough for P2, were it not for Scott Ticehurst in that QRT Alpine, making an improvement on his last lap as well. Fortunately for these guys, though, everyone kind of at the back end of the lap. So car 19, which is Harry Brooks, and this man, Scott Ticehurst. Probably, in fact, yeah, they'll be the only ones. Everyone else on their final lap.
Yep, everyone not in the pits is currently on a valid lap. Oh, no, ML just invalidated, yellow flag, and probably right back into the pits. There he goes. Yeah, and Ian Hall, yellow flag as well. Yep, back into the pits.
Ah, there you go, sir.
Vidoni, it's
no
just invalidated.
Yeah, this is essentially everybody's last lap, isn't it? Because no one's going to have enough time to get there before the finish flag, or for the checkered flag waves. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Checkered flag waved. So this will be Harry Brooks' final lap of the session. See what he's going to do. Track looks like it's maybe getting a little bit better out there as he goes nice and wide through Parabolica. Opens the corner up really nicely. Just get on the power as early as possible. Comes up towards the line. Doesn't decide to take the really nice cut line up towards the start finish. Does improve by, I think that was 1,000th of a second. So not enough to get an improvement on position, nor that for Scott Ticehurst. He gains a couple of hundredths on his previous lap. Now we see Carlos Plaza coming through Ascari. Goes through the first couple of corners absolutely fine. Doesn't decide to absolutely annihilate the curb coming onto the back straight rather. And then the other car in front of him is Szabo, but won't be again setting a lap time because currently invalid. So who have we got left? We've got Plaza, we've got Sherlock, and then we've got Blunkvist still to set their lap time. So the final 3 will cross the line in the next minute. Plaza nice and tight to the exit. Hopefully he doesn't do what he did on a couple of laps ago and invalidates that lap. Doesn't look like he will. Crosses the line. Oh, puts himself into P2, so he's going to be alongside Dan Hearn. Importantly for him, though, will be on the inside, being on the odd grid spot number for the race. So you see 119 comes across. Luke Sherlock does improve again, doesn't improve enough to gain a position. And then Elvin Blunkvist, the last of the running cars to cross the line. Let's see what time he puts in. He is currently going to need about 2 tenths to get past Sherlock and up into P34. Does not do that, though. So there you go. That is qualifying in the books. I hope that it's going to rain in the race, because I feel like there's enough out there to spice it up. And there you go. As I said, wet conditions ahead. I've been begging when I've been broadcasting for a wet race, and I'm so glad I finally got one. And I'm looking at that weather. I've got a slightly pixelated screen at my end, which is a little bit frustrating, but I can just about see some difference in rainfall over the next half an hour, which is going to be interesting to see how these guys get on.
Yep. According to our weather information screen, it's saying it's going to increase rain in 10 minutes, but then reduce back to a light rain in 30 minutes. So the damp conditions that the drivers all just got used to in qualifying is probably only going to last 5 to 10 minutes before the heavy rain starts coming down and it's back to full wet. So they're going to have to plan this first stint absolutely as a wet stint, and their tyres are probably going to get quite hot as the track dries before that rain comes in.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one to balance, isn't it? Because you don't, obviously, look, nobody knows what the weather's going to be like past that half an hour mark. I think if it's me, and I'd love to get your thoughts as well, Tricky, is I'm going deep into this race, I feel. I want to fill up with as much as I can to know that I've got enough to kind of get maybe even towards the last sort of 10 minutes just to see what the weather does. Because if I see that it dries up in 40 minutes, I'm going to want to pit for dries, aren't I? So I wonder if we might see a lot of the extended stints for the first part of this race.
Oh, pardon me. Yeah, it's definitely the plan to play the longer game with variable conditions like this, because you really don't want to dive into the pits and then that's when the rain stops. You see it in Formula 1 where they're trying to make the call like, oh yeah, come on, get onto the intermediates right now, and then that's it stops, it dries.
What's the infamous Martin Brundle phrase? You got to be on the right tyres at the right time, which realistically is just a really common sense statement, to be honest. But it's very true. He's not wrong.
Sometimes it's worked out great, and making that gamble is the team's decision and the driver's decision. But that a right tyre change at the right time can send a midfield team right to the podium. So
yeah, absolutely, it could definitely have a chance in this one. As Tyler Hammer's serving his appreciation to the mighty Jag.
The mighty Jag.
Sitting in P4. I love just channeling my inner Jeremy Clarkson whenever I see that car. I just feel it's the fastest car in the world. I don't really have the appropriate level of graveliness in my voice to really do that justice, but
I could maybe channel the tone of it, but I cannot do the accent. That I could just not do. It's so precise to how Jeremy Clarkson talks. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's one of them. Here we go then. Formation lap underway. Sedan Tut leads the grid away. Alan Zildzovic second on the grid, and an all-AM front row. It's nice to see a non-fully Ferrari kind of top 5 or so. We've got the Jag and the McLaren in there as well. Miles Dixon and Johnny Seville on the second row, with Henry Handy and Leighton Austin row 3. Aidan Chatburn, Sergei Folenko on row 4. And then Adam Gardner and Alex Shahabi on the 5th row of the grid, rounding out the top 10. I'd go through all of them, but that would require you having to go through and have to click through all the names as well so we can get further down. So make of it what you will. Everybody else further down. Dan Hearn, of course, as we saw a moment ago, is leading the GT4 class away, with Carlos Plaza just alongside him. We've got car 21 in the pits. Not sure who that is. Tony Raharidzeri, assuming that's right, Tony. If you do watch this back, or you're watching now, please do confirm the pronunciation. I do like to make sure. I've said this many times, haven't we? it's all well and good speaking with confidence, but if you do get it completely wrong, I'd rather know than continue to butcher it for the rest of the year, rest of the season.
Speaking with confidence while lying at the same time.
Absolutely, that's an interesting line from Sedan Tuts. He goes over the over through the Variante chicane. Interesting decision just to completely ignore the fact that there is a racing line and just decides to hit the curb instead. Warming tyres up is going to be very important, isn't it? Because as you rightly pointed out, Trinket, it's going to get wetter in the next 10 minutes. So you want to try and get as much heat into them now so that you don't lose it all when the track gets wetter than it already is.
That
so it's going to be
if they're on dry tyres, absolutely, but you'd rarely be able to get any heat into them. But I'm seeing a lot of people on wet tyres, and the worst thing that you can do on wet tyres on a formation lap is to try and warm them up, because it really only takes like a lap to get them up to temperature. You can do a little bit of brake dragging to get your brakes up to temperature and spread that heat out, but by the time you've hit turn 2, your tyres they're ready, they're good.
Yeah, you're absolutely fine. And of course, what we do have to appreciate is the fact that we have got the infamous Monza Turn 1 coming up as well. It's treacherous enough in the dry. We've got adverse weather to deal with as well, so it throws an extra element of jeopardy into the mix. Obviously, as we said, 50-minute pit window, so it's not going to open until 5 minutes into the race. Again, I would like to think that barring anyone with significant damage, they're probably not going to see too many people pit, if at all, in the first couple of laps. But it just needs that extra bit of caution, doesn't it, when you've got these adverse weather conditions? Because braking points are obviously going to be longer. It's going to be less grip on the circuit. There's going to be damper patches offline and things like that. So there's all these things that these guys have got to be really careful with coming into that first corner for the first time. With so many cars on track, we've got 39, I think maybe 40 in the server in total. So it's going to be a busy one.
It's all going to sandwich up for turn 1, so all the GT4s are going to catch up, and they're going to be right in that mess. Because they might even squeeze for a gap to get a GT3 between, you as a GT4 and the GT4 behind you. You squeeze yourself in front of a GT3, and that creates space between you and a GT4, and you can use that to your advantage.
Absolutely. It's a difficult balance to strike, and we'll find out how that balance is going to be struck in a matter of moments' time, as you see Sid and Tut lead us round Parabolica to round off this formation lap. Alan Zildzovic alongside him, with Miles Dixon and Johnny Seville on the second row. Is that Jag going to get the run off the line that we expect it could possibly get, or will it be a Ferrari or a McLaren that heads into the first corner in the lead of this one? As we go green here at Monza, we are underway for round 4 of the oNiD Racing Multiclass World Cup. It's a good start from Sedan Tut. It's also a good start from Miles Dixon, who gets alongside and just about ahead of Alan Zildzovic going into the braking zone. Johnny Seville alongside as well. He's going to try and slot his way into that little gap, gets himself into third. Miles Dixon's going to look around the outside. He's going to try and hang there.
I think a Thibaut Guertin in the background there.
Yeah, just saw a car off.
Oh, Seville has been spun around.
I don't know whether he spun that himself. It's all over the place. Goodness me. Johnny Seville parked and was beached at the exit of the first corner. You can see there's a Porsche there off to the infield as well. GT4s look like they've all got themselves worked through relatively cleanly. We've got a few white flags there where cars are driving a little bit slower than normal, but that is the worst start for the mighty Jag of Johnny Seville. He is dropped right the way back down. You've got Ian Hall, I think that is there, going a little bit slowly. Go for it. We've got another car off. That is the Alpine, the QRT Alpine. I think it's Scott Ticehurst, who's all over the place there. He's got Dan Hearn picked up in there as well. It's all happening in the first couple of corners here at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. We've got Jack Watson in the Mirage Motorsports Mercedes off there, as well as that is, I think that's Tony Raharizeri coming through the back of the grid. He's actually made up quite a few positions there, Trinket, because he started from the pit lane, of course, so he's probably counting his blessings he wasn't caught up in some of the incidents that we've had in the first half a lap here.
Yeah, maybe that was his decision to just avoid the carnage at lap 1, because it's very well known. It's the main feature of Monza is T1 carnage.
Well, exactly. I mean, he was up in what? He was P25, I think.
I'm trying to click a car. Lane, so. Oh no!
Oh no, Colin Cameron, your best mate.
I just love how you have to keep saying it.
I know. So I don't know why I feel like I feel obligated to keep saying it. And you're right. It was Thibaut Guertin who came off at the start as well, because I could just see him. He is there, just going past
the line
Chevy.
now, you can see the gap already. 3.6 seconds from Dixon to Chapman.
Yeah, that shows you. Where's Zildjić? Zildjić down in 10th, so him getting caught up with Seville. I didn't actually think there was any contact. I don't know whether it... Well, there must have been, looking at what's happened to Zildjić. But yeah, Tut and Dixon getting their way through relatively quickly. That is a very wonky looking Alpine.
Are we able to see? Oh, no.
Looks like he's already lost it there, hasn't he? That is a very broken looking car.
Very left on that front right there.
Now, one thing I did notice, just before you flashed into that replay, I noticed clear skies in 30 minutes' time.
Oh.
So what we talked
we've got a
about
few
is on
more
the
yellow
cards.
flags, but I'm stuck in the replay, so I can't see, but there was a few of the GT4s involved, Brix Viduni and Szabo.
Yeah, look at that steering angle on that Alpine. That is very, very wonky indeed. I mean, the benefit for him is if he carries on going at this speed, it might actually, the pit window might be open by the time he gets back, as Raymond Ryu is spun and he is beached almost. I was going to say beached on the second of the second chicane. Colin Cameron there coming through, kind of threading his way very gently through these GT4s. That weather causing all sorts of issues as John Cheel from the racing team is off as well. That is Thibaut Guertin trying to get through on the inside into the second Lesmo. And there's Carlos Plaza, who is currently leading at the GT4 class, has put himself a couple of seconds breathing space between him and the cars behind us. The weather is worse already. So that heavy rain we saw coming in, Trinket, has already come in less than 4 minutes into this race.
And also keeps resuming in 10 minutes as well. So it's going to be 10 minutes of this heavy rain before it will lessen and then stop.
So it's, yeah, lots to keep an eye out for in this one. At the front, though, you can see the gap still continuing to expand. 7 Tut and Miles Dixon starting to disappear off up the road. Mark Szabo has just spun it going through a scar. You can see on your screen now he's got a couple of GT3 cars in the form of Jack Watson making his way past. He's got a few GT4s in there as well. Marco L I saw in there as well. John Cheel, where's he going? Oh, that's fine. Oh,
yeah, I did notice in the practice session when I joined at the beginning of the server there was a I wouldn't say a collision between him and Johnny Ashley, but he did just lag and bounce around the track. So that's come back. It looked like it was stable for a while, but it seems to just happen again. But I got a yellow flag pop up for that.
Yeah, I was going to say that looked like he just kind of. I was worried for a moment. He just kind of felt like, nah, I'm done. I've given up, and just decided to drive into the wall, which wouldn't have been nice to see. Mike Brown's made a few positions. He's up into P11. In fact, yeah, he made a couple of positions up into P11. Dave Zielecki behind him in P12. Leighton Austin drops down into P7. There you see Adam Gardner coming past. That's Alex Shahabi, who's made up a few, and Henry Handy up a couple of positions, as is Aidan Chatburn. Still quite a hefty gap, 4.5 seconds up to the two in the lead of this race, and the gap between Tut and Dixon is increasing as well. So Tut's starting to get a little bit more space behind him, as here's Colin Cameron coming through Curva Grande.
I think his car must be pretty heavily damaged. I've seen quite a few yellow flags, but by the time I pop over to him, he's continuing on.
It doesn't look in the best of Nick. No, I'm seeing a little bit of flickered paintwork, which I know will serve you very disappointingly, because I believe you are the one who's the architecture of this beautiful livery. Which
but we made it so much worse in the Indy 24. I've done worse to that thing myself.
That's a team effort. That's the thing. So, Marco L off in the background as a McLaren off. He's going to just about, rather kind of innocuously, go into the wall. As you can see, rather ironically, the marshal waving the green flag ahead of him. I feel like that's probably still yellow territory, but apparently not. He's still got his green flag. He's still waving it. And he's stopped now. He's disappeared behind the timing tower. Here is Alan Zildzovic competing against... oh no, sorry, that is Nick Manders. My apologies. Oh, bit of contact there. Oh, goodness me. I think there was a McLaren Ferrari birds and the bees moment there, I think we'll call it. And Zildzovic is having an absolute horror show for this one. He has got caught up at the start, obviously, with Johnny Seville, and then she got caught up there with Manders, and that is not the way his first 7 minutes of this race would have wanted to go. Drops us now down into P14, and that's Gabriel Chamois, just a few seconds behind. So Remnant Racing 4-5. Henry Handy leads Adam Gardner, being followed by Alex Shahabi, who has dropped back a little bit. You can see the timing tower says it's just they are 0.05 of a second behind each other a moment ago. What's happened here? This is Gabriel Chamois coming into the second chicane. BMW already looking a little bit wonky. and rather slowly and almost clumsily just kind of re-enters the circuit after going a little bit deep into the second chicane. And has got, who's that? Is that Zildzovic behind him? I think it is.
Yes,
not
that
Wacker.
is for P13, yes.
Yeah, this is the perils of
Wacker
the
now
ACC
into
timing
14th,
tower and
yeah.
how long it takes to update itself. I'm sure we'll get confirmation. There we go, it is Zildzovic. Oh, as Wacker goes through the inside. He's
And collects Matt Holman and another
dear.
Lamborghini. That's Maffei. It's
Deary me,
not
yes.
a great position to be in. You're kind of literally blindsided. You come around that corner and you don't really see it.
Yeah, I'm sensing shades of Lawrence Stroll? Shades of Lance Stroll from Monza a couple of years back, just a little bit further round the chicane. But like I say, very little those other cars could do because they just really didn't have a chance to get out of the way. Like I said, blind entry. Very little you can do. Back up at the front, Miles Dixon has closed the gap a little bit. Fastest lap for him on the last tour round. So he's gained a couple of tenths on Seddon Tutt ahead of him at the moment. They're continuing to increase that gap, nearly 7 seconds now, back to Aidan Chatburn. So they'll just be hoping, I'm sure, they'll be probably thinking, yeah, we'll keep it clean time. So it's just 6 seconds, not 7 seconds, my apologies. They'll probably thinking as Marco L decides to take another bit of a pirouette through Ascari, just trying to kind of think it through, not rush anything, kind of stay close to each other, but not necessarily fight, because there's no reason for them to at the moment, is there? Because they've got a nice big gap and it is continuing to improve.
Yeah, it's definitely a pit strategy play for them two there. Unless Dixon can take the lead and make a gap, they're just going to be on each other's heels for the next however long until one of them pits. 30 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah, see when it starts to dry out. It'll be interesting to see who decides to go when, whether they go early or not. As we see Johnny Seville up there with Zildzovic and Gabriel Chamos. Of course, Zildzovic and Seville did get caught up one another on the first corner, if you remember, back to just under 10 minutes ago. As we see, Samuel Page, has lost it through the second Lesmo in the Aston Martin. He's going to get taken over by Pablo Maffei as well. You look back to the G4 Series action all over the place, which is kind of what you get when it comes to weather like this.
I thought the past few weeks were chaotic. It gets more chaotic every week.
I was going to say, I'm not envying you for having to keep an eye on what's going on here. It's a little bit all over the place. But this is the battle in GT4. Oh, is there Sam Page again? Losing the back end through Ascari. Looked like he maybe just took a bit too much curb there. And that's probably unsettled the car and sent him for a little spin out of there. And that is Tony Raharazzeri just behind him. Martin Thorpe, here you go. He's going to try and go the long way around for Ascari. He's going to try and go round Ralph Vest into the braking zone. He's going to hold on for a minute. Blue flag's being waved for these guys, I think. Oh, his Vest goes a little bit deep into there. Oh, comes off. Oh, goodness me, that was so close. I thought there was going to be a proper bit of collection there. Luckily, Thorpe just managed to eke his way around the outside very nicely indeed. Here's Leighton Austin up the inside of Alex Shahabi. Caught that perfectly well timed on the broadcast there. And that is Sergei Falenko right the way behind. Ollie Knowles now is trying to go around the outside of Johnny Ashley. We've got, oh my god, I'm going to run out of breath in a minute. John Shield loses a position. He's spun round. Ollie Knowles can't get the move done on Johnny Ashley. That Bentley pretty rapid in a straight line compared to the Porsche, manages to hold on to the position as a result. Samuel Page is in the pit lane, so isn't going to want to wait until the rain potentially subsides. Ollie Knowles looks at the inside of the first Lesmo there, thinks better of it. We're getting almost very much peaks and troughs, aren't we? Because we're getting a couple of seconds where it's just kind of following each other quite nicely, and then all of a sudden it's like bang, let's have a move, a spin, a bit of contact, all sorts within the next 2 seconds, all at the same time. Keep up with that.
I am scrolling up and down this program frantically, just seeing whatever I can. It just doesn't stop.
Like a madman. It's interesting. I thought that was going to be Harry Brook trying to get around the outside in the Alpine through Curva Grande. Leighton Austin is going to try and get back round and back past Alex Shahabi. He does for now. Just cuts off the nose of that Mercedes as they go on to the start-finish straight. Here is Tony Raharazzeri in the McLaren. He's the one who started pit lane, of course. Shahabi looks around the outside. This is probably the move he'd want to make if he can get the braking zone right. Doesn't know, although he's going to try for the cutback, you would think, coming at the second corner. up through Curva Grande. Sergei Falenko's going to be watching this, licking his lips as Sam Page comes out just ahead of them on track. Falenko's probably there thinking, right, something's going to go wrong here, and I'm about to take 2 positions. He's rubbing his hands together, thinking about that. Same with Mike Brown, who's just in the background of this one as well, very much on the precipice. This is Sam Page. Oh, is this Harry Brooks as well? Spun on the apex of Ascari. He's just about going to get back on track. There have been some rather questionable rejoins so far in this one, it has to be said.
What a shot that is.
Absolutely. You see Blomqvist just managing to hold. In fact, he's holding the position from Badam Hebibovic, although Hebibovic is going to try and get up the inside on the exit of Sky. That is almost the picture-perfect cutback, you would argue. Assuming that he holds on to it, of course. But that Chevy is no slouch in a straight line, although looks like that Mercedes might be running a slightly bit less wing than the American muscle. And as a result, he might even have the move done before the braking zone. I wonder if Hebibovic is going to try a little bit of a late braking move. Oh, he's very close alongside. It's just to give him a bit of room. And oh dear. Oh, that's a sad looking Alpine. I think they look quite sad and kind of weak anyway.
Especially after listening to the SGP podcast on the Monza Endurance race stream. They had the Alpine esports guy.
Yeah.
Chatting about Alpine esports, all that stuff, and then just seeing sad Alpine coming into the pits.
Always a bit. Blomqvist there. Sorry, decides he doesn't fancy that chicane, and slots in behind him a bit. Rather sensible, I would imagine, because he's kind of really defended that position, which might have been a change had he managed to get through there. Ollie Knowles, round 2 of Knowles versus Ashley, coming up the start-finish straight. That Porsche is pretty much being left behind. You can actually see, it's almost like he's going backwards. The pace of that Bentley in comparison is so much better. Porsche will be good under brakes though. I wonder if Knowles is going to try and look for a move up the inside. No, just settles in for another corner. We're now back to a damp track as Ashley goes deep on the curb, bumps over some of the sausages, and as a result upsets the car, and Ollie Knowles will say, "Thank you very much, good sir. I'll take that 16th position off you, and I will not offer you a refund." Carries on where he was. Damp track now, so rain starting to subside. Sergei Falenko not necessarily seeing that damp track though, still gets the back end of that McLaren 720 very, very sideways indeed as he passes his little brother in the 570S of Marco L in there behind. What this has meant though is that Leighton Austin has made a little bit of an escape ahead of Shahabi, Falenko and Brown. So fortunate for him, not so fortunate for these guys, but he just gained himself a little bit of breathing room up ahead.
You take whatever's given to you.
Absolutely. You can see you've got I think that's the Mercedes of Nick Manders being followed by Dave Jalecki there in the background. We saw Luke Sherlock. This is a 4-way battle, so to speak, of Hebibovic, Sherlock, Thorpe, and who's the other one in there? Is it Plot? That's not Plot. Who else is in there? Is this a? I'm getting confused now. Oh, that is Ticehurst, I think, who's 4 laps down.
We've got.
So I think that's who we see. Yeah. So it's a 3-way battle. Yeah, that's Ticehurst.
Yeah, that's Ticehurst
who's
in
not
front,
actually. Yeah. I was going to say, it looks like he's pulling away, which he probably is because he's not having to battle with these guys.
He's also 2 laps down. 2 to 3. He was in the pits for quite a while with that damage. His car was not straight.
Yeah, one of the few sad-looking Alpines. As Alen Zildzovic looks up the inside of Johnny Seville and the Jag. Doesn't manage to get it done though. Big cut on the nose of that Ferrari from Seville in the number 2 low fuel motorsport machine. And that is, I think that's a lapped car ahead of them as well. It's one of the Remnant Racing Ferraris. I think that is Raymond Ryu in the number 5 machine, if I'm not mistaken. No, sorry, it's not. It's John Cheadle.
John Cheadle. Yep.
Yeah, I'm slowly starting to remember
let me click the car.
Oh, that was Marco L. I thought that was John Cheadle who just lost it. I'm slowly starting to remember the LED names on the front of it and remembering who they are, because I noticed in the qualifying session, understandably, Carlos Plaza looks like the one that you don't change it. You just get player 1. It looks like that. But I'm assuming it is actually Plaza. It's just the first 3, obviously, being exactly the same.
Yeah, because SimRacing.GP dictates your LED name. Because for me, I would prefer it to have DTA, for DeTass, but
Oh, do you get the apostrophe?
I get the apostrophe, so it's just
You get-
D space T. So my
Yeah.
LED board just says drive-through.
Very, very appropriate, I'm sure.
I don't get them very often. It should be in Bane's car.
You need to get him racing under your name from now on, just to make that happen. You see there, Johnny Seville going on to the inside line. We saw that in qualifying, didn't we? Maybe just trying to put a bit less heat through those wet tyres. As there's Thibaut Guertin off, and that is a rather bent Ferrari 296 front end. We'll see the replay. It's definitely not bent here. The one behind him of Wacker is. What's he going to do here? Catches the curb, does he, on the exit? Oh no!
Oh, the back end just goes. We've
Deary me.
been seeing that trend quite a bit on this series lately. Just to the Ferrari just swapping back ends.
I've driven it once and I had that happen a lot, as that is looking rather difficult to drive. Is this a position then? If you're in Guertin's place now, are you pitting for dry tyres, seeing that forecast?
Absolutely. Because the track is damp, you can still equal pace with wet tyres on damp tyres at this position. But of course, to maximise it, you would run as long as you can on your wets before swapping to dries. But if you forced your hand into it, you can still get pace out of them. He's just unfortunately losing a bunch of time to that damage repair.
Yeah, absolutely. At least it'll mean he'll lose time, and it'll be hopefully a
and
little
we
bit
have
dry.
had a Zalecky disconnect once again.
Oh no, heartbreaking. He's doing well as well. Was that P11 before the disconnect? He just appears to kind of, appears to disappear off
he's back.
into the. Oh, there he is again.
No, he's not. Now he's actually left.
No, he's actually gone. Yeah, now he's completely gone. Sad times, Mr. Leck. I'm sure we'll see him in the chat in a minute. I'm sure we'll get a message saying, "Oh, bloody disconnected again."
But at some point, Dixon has taken the lead from Tut.
Yeah.
But Tut is
Change.
right on the back of Dixon. Just got a little bit slippery on the inside there.
Yeah, still very close. Tut using a little bit of the slipstream off the back of Ian Hall, who's running very comfortably in second in the GT4 class as it stands, I believe. Yeah, starting to properly kind of come through the back markers now, aren't they? The GT4s for the first time realistically, as we see now. Raharizeri in the McLaren trying to make the move on Pablo Maffei. It's going to go up the inside into Ascari and pretty much gets the move done before the break, or pretty much as they enter the braking zone. As Maffei, Piero Maffei. My apologies, Piero. I've commented on Pablo Maffei before, that's where I'm getting it from. As Colin Cameron is going to look to capitalise on whatever happened to the Lamborghini there, and puts himself up into 21st now, just on the outskirts of the top 20.
And to think when I was
definitely getting better.
And to think when I was watching that exchange, I thought that it was Raharizeri that was going to spin, but no, Maffei ended up doing it.
Oh dear! A spin from our GT4 class leader Dan Hearn. And that's going to
he did manage to get himself back into the lead of GT4 after that incident at the beginning of the race. Oh dear.
That's scary for him. It's fine. Turn it back on. Wait a minute.
Especially in these conditions, his wet tyres are going to be cooked right now. So
yeah, they are going to be
trying to go race pace with those right now is just going to swap ends on him, as we just saw. That is the problem with these damn conditions. Those tyres are getting cooked, and you slide once, they're very cooked.
Yeah,
got another yellow flag further back. Oh, his steering is quite broken. Let's have a quick look at that. Oh no, there's more to this story than we thought. Oh dear.
Oh goodness, what happens there? I'm assuming the McLaren that was was involved in that as well. Oh dear. That is very, very broken. I wonder if he's going to have to go back in and return to garage rather than make it all the way back. Oh, gets caught up with Ralph Vest. What happens here? Does he hit that? Oh, that's what it is. Yep. I was about to say, I'm assuming he's going to hit the entrance to one of those tyre barriers. I wasn't sure how it was going to happen, but there you go. Yeah, look at that front right tyre. That's pointing towards France, I think. My geography is correct.
Let's get a steering input fully to the left.
Oh dear. That is less than ideal. 10 minutes from dry weather though, so
he just took out Jack Watson.
Oh dear, poor Jack. I mean, that's just done as much of a job on Jack's car as it has on as the move did on Mark's car anyway. That is hideous luck for Jack, who I feel like for some reason has just had no luck in this series anyway. for no lack of trying, he just seems to be caught up in anything. And look at that as well. That's not as bad on the steering angle, but it's bad enough. Fortunately for these guys, though, we said it before, at least it's coming towards the drying of the tracks. I know you obviously you don't want to be involved in any damage, ideally, but at least it's happening now rather than 20 minutes ago when it's still soaking wet, and you can actually change your tyres now and get away with it.
Yes, unfortunately, some of the drivers had to on the early race when they had some big damage, such as Ticehurst and Brooks. In Hall, they had to stop early. I think Brooks stopped not too long ago, but must have been sat in the pits for a while. But definitely Hall and Ticehurst were stopped early on for big damage.
Brooks had that. Yeah, Brooks was that rather sad-looking Alpine, wasn't he, that we saw coming into the pit lane? So that explains that. Well, yeah, Mark Zarbo in the pits now, so I don't think he even made that back. I'm assuming that was a return to garage move from him. As all Rafes,
we do have a returning Zalecki though.
Hey. He's just now going to have to deal with the 2.5 minutes or whatever it is of time where you have to sit and wait when you return to the server. There is Wacker just ahead of Sean Hunt with a rather wonky looking Bentley. I've never seen that pink LED aerial that sticks up the top of the boat before.
I was about to mention that. I've definitely fiddled with the light options before and saw there was an option on the aerial, but I've never seen anyone use it before. It does look very interesting in game.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's only a tiny aerial, but surely that's aerodynamically inefficient. Even with something that thin.
I don't think you would want something like that on top of your car.
No, exactly.
As he dives into the pits as well.
Never seen that before. Yeah, Wacker just going into the pit. Then that promotes Sean Hunt up into P15. It's really just a case of when will that rain end? You can see it's still just about coming down. In certain angles it doesn't look like it is, which is a little bit weird. But can confirm still raining. As Dan Hearn, has he just lost a couple more positions? Has he potentially had a little excursion off the track? Oh, he's been spun by a Porsche. In fact, he wasn't spun by a Porsche, he was actually rewrited by said Porsche and kind of did more of a spin on his own than he did from that coming together with Big Daddy Porsche as opposed to little baby Porsche that he's in.
I'm not sure this race is going too well for anyone apart from the two leaders who've just escaped from the starting carnage and just kept going.
Yeah,
Dixon now with a 1.5 second gap to Tut. Goes very wide on the last corner though.
Luckily he didn't go too wide too early because there's a massive sausage curve on the outside of Parabolica, if I remember correctly, because I've hit it before, and it does like to send your car into the air relatively aggressively.
Let's just be glad we don't have a drain cover that will flip you.
Yes, that is very, very true. Johnny Ashley, you see on your screen now, up into P14, sorry. He's got Matt Holman just ahead of him in the Aston Martin, the 51 machine. And then there's a gap of 1.3 seconds. Oh, sorry, I thought Johnny was going to maybe lose a little bit going wide there. Up to Ollie Knowles. That is Sam Page in the Aston Martin behind. He is down right the way down the back end of the field because he had some damage earlier on and has served his pit stop. And then we've got Sean Hunt just behind them as well, and then Gabriel Chamois a little bit further back in the straight. As there you go, Sam Page goes a little bit wide. I wonder, Triggy, if he was one of those people, because he pitted about 10 minutes ago, didn't he? Where he probably is on dry tyres and just having to just kind of almost just suffer until it gets dry.
I'm always really punished by seeing yellow flags, and it's just people coming into the pits.
It's the downside of having the pit entry line where it is on here. The same thing happens at where was I commentating on Thursday? Where was I on Thursday? Paul Ricard, it was the same one. So when they come in, it decides to think you've got a yellow flag. So you're getting a yellow flag every sort of 5 minutes because everyone's pitting instead of in the stop. Very, very distracting.
Had a bit of a three-way going on here, but Handy's dropped off a little bit while Gardner has caught more up to Chatburn. But yeah, it's a Ferrari three-way for that podium spot.
Giggity, giggity. Yeah, Chatburn has held that one. I mean, to be fair, it's been in this order for the last pretty much 25-30 minutes. They've not changed position, so far as I've seen, since they got up into here. As you can see, Hunt, Chamois and Cameron all currently in pit lane. As these two of these will decide to pit. So presumably trying to pretty much split the race in half, you would argue, and that promotes Henry Handy up into P3. I would suggest that Henry's probably got the better strategy if he's going a bit further in, just because with that rain coming down still, if he's got the fuel to run it, you want to try and get it to a point. And because of the amount of people on track, of course, you'd expect this track is going to dry up and go from greasy to green, maybe even fast, pretty quickly, you'd argue.
With the amount of rubber put down, I've even seen it go from damp to greasy straight to optimum, skipped green and fast.
Wow, really? Jeez.
But I've only seen that in endurance races where it rains when the track's been optimum, so I don't know, because the track's never been optimum before. I don't know if it will, but there has been a lot of rubber put down on track. I don't know everything, but we'll find out together.
You know, yeah, exactly. We'll take this journey of discovery together, don't you worry. See Shahabi and Falenko both in spits, as are Ollie Knowles and Johnny Ashley as well. So a lot of these drivers and Raymond Reeves splitting their race in half, pretty much. That promotes Zilzovic and Johnny Seville up a position each. There is confirmation from Jalecki in the chat.
He just says...
less than ammo.
Yeah. Ammo.
I think... Is that less? No, it's more than, isn't it?
I think he might be trying to say hello, but his hands are in the wrong place.
Man, I'm annoyed. Internet decided to crap out. I was having a good race. You were. It's heartbreaking. To be completely honest with you, Dave, I'm absolutely gutted for you, my friend. You see Guerta just going a little bit sideways. Coming out of the second Lesmo. It's always when you have the best races, that's when stuff goes wrong. You can't have it any other way. Sadly for you. But hopefully get a chance to get a good result again next weekend in round number 5. And you can come and spend the rest of the evening with Trinket and I for the next half an hour or so to wrap up this race. Because to be fair, we've been blessed with quite a fun one so far, I'd argue, wouldn't have we? We've had some incidents, a lot of action, and you've been kept very, very busy as a result.
I have, and so as you know, with ACC Race Control, we have a record of incidents. And
yes.
It's long. I even have an incident that has 7 cars listed. And we've got another.
Goodness. Whoa! Very much a race-leading protagonist, spinning himself round. He's decided to do a couple of pirouettes on the exit of the Variantiata chicane, and that's him down into P3 because Henry Handy is that man who's just got in front of him, who interestingly has just had the fastest lap of the race as well. And you can see there, that is exactly what you said, Trinket. That is some hot tyres on the back of that McLaren, because he is getting wheel spin and back end sliding pretty much every corner he comes out.
Yeah, you can even see the track is pretty much just damp. There's no wet patches. Well, there's a few puddles here and there, but you can't see a dry line anymore, which means it's evenly damp.
Yeah, 100%. You can see a little bit on some of the apexes, can't you? But
there's a few puddles here and there, but if you compare this shot to about 10 minutes ago, you can really see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. That is very much the case. I wonder if Tut will decide to cut his losses and maybe pit now, just to get a fresh set of boots on. But yeah, Henry Handy, fastest lap on the last time round. I mean, obviously we know the track's getting quicker, so we'll probably expect that to change quite a bit in the next couple of laps.
He's on dry tyres, that would make sense. Dixon diving into the pits and also Tut into the pits. But yeah, so Handy on dry tyres. So those track conditions really favouring the dry tyres at the moment, as you can see by Handy's pace.
Yeah,
he did a 52.6, whereas Dixon's fastest was a 52.9.
There you go. And that's obviously going to benefit him going into the back end of this race as well, because he could, if he fancied it, I don't know if he would or not. It probably seems a little bit risky given it's a 5-second deficit to change tyres and fuel in this series. He could, if he wanted to, change tyres. He could leave it. It'd be an interesting thing to see what move he decides to go for. I suppose in a minute we'll find out, as the rain has now officially stopped. So we are now in dry conditions despite having a slightly damp track. Or no, I say that, it immediately translates to greasy, which is understandable. It's always the case.
Well, we did see how lacking in dampness the track was. Lacking in wet areas. You can already see it dry in certain areas now. It's drying up very quickly. And of course, remember, it's 27 degrees with a 33-degree track temperature. That's going to dry up very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no wind, so it's not going to. We're probably not going to see any. Oh, there's more rain actually in 30 minutes. So that's going to be
a little bit
remains to be seen. Yeah, I suppose normally it's a bit of bearing, isn't it? So maybe get a little drizzle at the end. Not enough to really impact this race at the end, you'd think. So it was a little bit sideways coming out of the second Lesmo, as of a lot of people in all of the sessions that you and I have watched so far this evening, both or the practice, the qualifying, and the race. A little bit more from Dave, yes, who's chasing Falenko in the top 10 and been racing with oNiD at Bathurst in the Motor Enduro Series. No disconnects there. Typical. That is the definition of bad luck for you there, Dave. I'm very gutted for you, mate. And hopefully the only 6 hours of Bathurst went well as well. I haven't actually seen any of it, to be honest, because I've been driving back from a wedding today. So I haven't had a chance to...
Still about half an hour left on it, I would think.
It's almost like we planned this to end at the same time.
Well, this is exactly what happened last month when I was doing it. I think my race finished, and then 2 minutes later the Moser Endurance race finished.
Just so you can catch the end of the Moser one, exactly. See? Everyone's 3 steps ahead in terms of planning these streams. I'm convinced of it. So, what are we? We're just over halfway. Henry Handy currently leads this one. He's in the lead primarily because he hasn't pit yet. He, as was mentioned a moment ago, is on the dry tyres from the start of this one, so he's in a good position, you would think, to have a good result by the end of this one. He is leading in the AM category at the moment. Miles Dixon, Miles Dixon, I think is the leader of the Pro Class as it stands, and then currently, it's primarily because he hasn't pitted, Luke Sherlock leads the way in GT4s. He's 22nd overall. He will lose that as we see Piero Maffei off on the inside of Parabolica, as he's presumably just lost it. A bit of lift off oversteer, maybe. Hard to say. It's a tough one here because no one's seeing you coming if you reverse out of here. So be so careful not to collect anyone as you reverse out of there. In fact, there he goes.
Someone just got a stop-go 30. That might be Zubzovic? No, Leighton Austin.
I was going to say, I knew it was car 23, but I didn't know who car 23
was. I saw Leighton Austin and Zubzovic in the pits a moment ago.
Damn, not ideal. And apologies, it is Henry Handy leading the Pro Class. It is Seddon Tutt leading the AM Class. And then, as I said, Luke Sherlock currently leading the GT4s. However, he's in the pit lane, so Carlos Plaza will inherit that in a matter of seconds, because I could see him coming across the start-finish line, as I think I could just see the 119 of Sherlock is just moving again. And that is Lorenzo Vidoni, who's decided that turn 1 doesn't exist, and he wants to go trekking through some of the polystyrene barriers instead, which I've done before. I can confirm, quite good fun.
He's channeling the inner Monza classic oval. There has been some silence.
Sorry, I was waiting for you to say something else. And I think I lost you.
The classic Monza oval where the straight is doubled and you can go on the right side, go on the oval, and the left side, and you go around the classic Monza layout.
Yeah, I've seen that before. It's an iRacing circuit layout as well, which I've yet to buy, but it does look like it'd be quite good fun.
I have seen.
Apart from there is some bumps as it tracks from the old layout to the new one, and it could be quite sketchy.
Yeah, I've seen a few videos of people driving modern NASCARs around there. Sometimes backwards, and sometimes they hit the fence.
That just sounds like an accident waiting to happen.
At 200 miles an hour, it's an accident that kind of happens.
It's an accident that's already happened as soon as you've come out into the track. As you see, yeah. So Leighton Austin serving his Stockgo 30 now, so that's going to drop him miles out of the top 10. That promotes these two up or promotes them further up into the top 10, I should say. And to be fair, these guys have had a pretty good response to that early incident that they had. They're still quite a way off the leads of this race, as we see Henry Handy pits from first place. Still got a bit of in fact, that's quite a healthy gap that he's got at the moment, because this is Miles Dixon just coming up to Ascari. I'd be interested to see whether Handy can actually hold on to this position, because he wasn't far behind anyway. Remains to be seen whether he'll get out of the pit lane ahead of Dixon, who's coming. Oh my goodness! As Henry Handy has birthed a Leighton Austin. almost it looked like there, which was rather interesting. Classic scenario where the pit lane or the number of pits.
So it's Dixon coming around the parabolic, and now Handy's still stationary. So I think Dixon does have him just on pace down the straight alone.
Oh, there you go. So that is Handy moving, I think, because I've just seen the There you go. He's going to come out of the pit lane now. He's going to presumably get ahead of Gardner, you'd think. Or in fact, stay ahead of Gardner, I should say. But there you go. Yeah. So Dixon inherits the lead. Drive-through penalty for car 61. Not quite sure
that is
who that is.
Vidoni, who we previously witnessed miss turn 1.
Yes. I'm assuming that would have been one of the marks towards his drive-through. I would have guessed. Because I think turn 1's one of those where if you go so fast through it, it will actually mean that you get disqualified. Similar to some of the other tracks, where if you miss the corner, you'll get the DQ as well. I'm pretty sure that is one of them that's also in that kind of bracket of if you're going too fast, we're just going to kick you out. So luckily he slowed down for that, but not enough to avoid any more drive-through penalties. Adam Gardner now with the fastest laps. I expect that's going to change over the next couple of laps as we start to see people kind of bed in a bit more. Sean Hunt on the back end of Johnny Ashley in that sole Bentley on the grid. It's battle for P13. So
just to jump away, we just had a yellow flag for Raceroom. Saying it differently every single time I say it.
It's one of those that he's certainly pointing in the right direction now. That is that's Tuck who's just gone past him. He's got a relatively healthy gap behind by the looks of it. So fortunately, any incident he did have doesn't appear to have impacted his race. Although looks to be he might be going a little bit slowly down that back straight up towards the Ascari chicane. As we see now, fast tracks has gone from greasy to fast straight away. It's like I say, part of it having quite a bit of people on track. As said, and Tuck gets a drive-through penalty from P4 as well. So this has been a bit of a horror show over the last sort of 10 minutes or so. Did that little pirouette on into this chicane here, the second chicane on the lap. Now with a drive-through, gone from P2. That's going to put him down to what? P9, P10, you'd think?
Well, we'll see. He's gone right in. But yeah, that's also something that Stephen Bain, the drive-through master, will tell you, is that because they've all spent so much time doing wet laps, practice full wet, qualifying damp, the race was wet, damp, and now going to fast, it uses your delta time when you go off track and go back on track to determine whether you're gaining an advantage. But because it's going from wet times to dry times, even if you're going slowly through, you're still kind of gaining an advantage because of how slow you were going through previously. So getting drive-throughs in this condition is very easy. So we're seeing the fruits of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Start to see a few more of them before the race finishes, I would expect. As here is Colin Cameron trying to make the move on Sean Hunt. So Sean's just dropped back a little bit from Johnny Ashley and fallen into the clutches of Cameron, who is already past him in the straight line. I wonder if that Ferrari has been set up for some dry weather, potentially, because that is very, very quick. It almost felt like Sean was going backwards to a large extent, which is a little strange. As Raharizeri pits again. Weird move. Yeah, that almost looked like a GT3 versus a GT4 car for a moment. The difference in speed between Cameron and Hunt was quite something. As there is a so Tony Raharizeri has pitted again. He'd already served his mandatory pit stop, left the pit lane, and subsequently got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane for a stop that I would imagine he didn't necessarily have to do.
Well, we did see him crash earlier. Had a bit of a wonky bonnet.
Ah, yes, very true.
So he went in to serve that damage and went a bit too quick into the pit lane, or did the mistake that I have done before, which is not shift down into first gear.
Oh, I've done that so many times. So easy to do, especially in GT4 car where they've got such small first gears as well. And exactly what you mean.
I did that in the Ginetta. I came into the Paul Ricard pit entry in second gear. I was under the speed limit, but the revs were still low. And I just put my foot down on the floor, thought my pit limiter was on, and then it wasn't.
Oh, God. That is the worst luck when that happens. It's one of those, you always know, don't you, as well? You look at it and it's always before you stop in the box. You sit there and you go, I've sped. I know I've sped. I'm going to get a penalty, and you just have to wait that entire pit stop, and then you get out of the pit lane, and then you get it. You laugh, for goodness sake.
What's worse is that was a team race, and my teammate was Sam
Oh,
Page.
no.
So I had to sit there in the pits while handing the car over to him, telling him, "I'm sorry, I think I just gave you a stop go 30."
Oh, that's horrible. I've done that as well. As we see, Colin Cameron looks at the inside into the rear variant chicane. Doesn't get it done on this occasion. There you go. Yeah, we're seeing the fast lap, as mentioned, being shared around. Mike Brown takes that one in P17 at the moment. Now that kind of attempted move from Colin Cameron has brought Sean Hunt back into play in this one. Only a few tenths between the three of them at the moment. See again, confirmation for Radar still needs to push. Still needs to serve that drive-through penalty as Cucumber Bush enters the chat. That is one of the more unique names. Do you have a real life translation to that YouTube handle, or?
I know them, but my brain is blanking on their actual name. But I do know Cucumber Bush. He's from around these parts.
I do appreciate the fact that the profile picture resembles a bush with cucumbers in it. So it's not just a random name with no context. Paul Cumber.
Paul Cumber. I don't think I've ever raced with them before then. Colin Cameron side by side with Johnny Ashley's. Oh, getting a little. Whoa, and the rear end getting loose.
Oh, I was about to say that was really good racing from both of them.
Sean Hunt is now taking that advantage as well.
Yeah, very opportunistic from the McLaren. Although he's going to unfortunately, presumably not keep the position because of the fact he's got, I think it's Harry Brooks ahead of him. We're getting clamouring from Ryan Davies to say, can we see Holman versus Knowles?
Where are they? Oh yeah, gee, ooh.
There's Holman. I think that's Holman making the move. So he's got past. I mean, that Porsche is a slouch in a straight line. In fairness, that is the Aston Martin getting the move done, going into the first corner. As we go on to lap 23, we're on to now. So Holman, one position outside of the top 10. He's got a little bit of work to do to claim up to Nick Manders, who's currently in P10 as at the moment. And Seddon Tutt, the aforementioned, has served his pit stop, served his drive-through rather. Comes out in P9, so enough for Gap back to not lose anything in the top 10 race. But looks like him, Falenko, Seville, and Silzovic are pretty close together, so we'll have to keep an eye out for as this race continues towards its final kind of knockings, as it were, into the final 15 minutes.
I'm going to jump over to that fight because it is a three-way.
Yeah, there you go. It's a four-way. If you count Seville just in front of them, depends on whether Seville can use this to his advantage to try and make a little bit of a gap back to these guys. Paul Cumber, I didn't do much racing, some amateur series last year, and then odd events. So that probably explains it.
Probably would explain it, yes.
Not a name I recognise, but Paul, good evening to you. And dare I say, your bush looks very nice. So here we go. Zildzovic under pressure. Seddon Tutt, he's going to try and look to the outside. He's going to have a Falenko barrier in front of him. And a GT4. Who's that? That's the GT4 Blomqvist, I think it is, in ahead. And Seddon Tutt, what a move that is. Very opportunistic again from him. Just decides to send it around the outside of Zildzovic. Gets the job done. Up into P8. And that is a very, very good move indeed. As Warty Warthog enters the chat as well. Again, I can just about see on my very small YouTube pop-out chat there is a Warthog in a little red car, from what I can see.
My second monitor is way too far away, I can't see that.
I have had to look very closely at the screen, to be fair, and it's within an arm's reach of me, so it suggests probably how big they are. And Paul's glad I like his bush, which is always nice. Okay, let's move away from that very briefly, because we've got the battle for P15. Mike Brown is currently holding off Raymond Ryu as... Oh, I was about to say, I thought Harry Brooks had just... Oh! We've got a live drive-through. It's literally just as he went through that first chicane, or went over that first chicane, got that drive-through straight away. Dan Hearn in the pits. He looks like he is down and out because he is quite the way back. Don't even know what's happened to Dan. That's a big shame for him in his title challenges. Oh, there's a bit of contact between Ryu and... another car just ahead of him. Looks like Ryu is actually waiting as well, which is good to see.
I think it was Brown and Ryu.
Oh my goodness! Oh no, that was clumsy.
Might have
I
to
wasn't
send
really
that
sure
one to the
what.
stewards.
Yeah,
Just
I don't
for
really
after
know
he's
what
left.
Harry was doing anyway. Kind of just parked it on the side of the apex and just waited. I don't know. Who knows?
Not the best. We've
What was
got Leighton
going on?
Austin on Rio now.
This is Leighton Austin making his way back up the field after that stop-go 30 that he had before.
We've also
He's
got
gonna
Johnny
try and make
Ashley and
quick
S
work.
Hunt side by side as Leighton Austin just edges out slightly ahead.
Yeah, understandably, as we can see, Sedentup making his way past Sergei Folenko as well. So he's up into P7, excuse me, on the timing tower. Up on the top left-hand side, it's currently still Miles Dixon who leads the way. We've got Henry Handy in second place and Adam Gardner very much in the shout for P2, just over a second behind the 28 Remnant Racing machine. Those two, of course, being teammates in their own right, both being in the pro class. However, Adam Gardner, of course, is leading that championship at the moment. So I wonder whether we will see some team orders at some point in the next 12 and a bit more, just under 12 minutes potentially.
Daniel Hearn says engine has blown.
Oh, I'm impressed to know how you managed to do that.
It went from a bad start to a reasonable return to a worse ending to a catastrophic. My goodness, that is tut spinning.
Oh, goodness me. That is, I mean, this has been one of the worst second halves of a race I've ever seen for Sedentup in this one, because he's just had the worst luck. Fortunately for Zildzovic and Folenko, they didn't have such bad luck because they just about managed to get their way around him, which for a moment there I wasn't 100% sure was going to happen. This is the battle for first in the GT4 class. This is Luke Sherlock in the oNiD Racing Stronger machine. Has got a fantastic run. Wow. So again, it's like this Giannetta's going backwards as Plaza sends her at the inside, thinks better of it, just ducks back in behind the rear wing of the AMG GT4. But that is a change for the lead in the GT4 class. That is Luke Sherlock taking the lead ahead of Carlos Plaza. Of course, Carlos did not take part in the race last week and is now back into second place in class. So that's going to be music to Mr. Hearn's ears, I'm sure, because that means a few less points that Carlos will be taking off. That man himself, of course, as we saw in the chat a minute ago, has had a blown engine.
And I don't think Luke Sherlock has finished outstandingly well through this season, so this will be I mean, this is currently an outstanding result for him already. I think it's his first win of the season for sure. But that does mean for Daniel Hearn that someone in the midfield getting all of the points is better for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Take them away from give them someone who doesn't necessarily have as much to worry about right now. Never a bad place to be, as we see Ilpo Ruotsalainen, or Ruotsalainen, I probably butchered that surname, Ilpo, I'm so sorry. Ginetta runs out of gear, he hits the rev limiter in the top gear. I mean, I'm not surprised. So,
but the most important fact is that he has 30 seconds of damage. But yes, I do know that Ginetta tops out most of the time, but I'm pretty sure it's fine around Monza. So seeing that pace difference at the end of the straight there was quite surprising to me.
Yeah, there you go. Damage is exactly what restart suggested from Dan in the chat.
50 minutes into the race.
I was unsure as to we might have seen one at the start of it. I don't necessarily think we can get away with one now. You never know.
That was not. It was a bit messy, but that definitely wasn't red flag material. That Watkins Glen race was absolutely red flag material because 70% of the grid did not make it to turn 1.
Yeah, that's very true. We saw a few people, didn't we? But yeah, nothing too crazy, fortunately, in the start of this one, which is always good to see.
Ian Hall catching up to Habibovic as well. Johnny Ashley and S Hunt still on each other's heels. Yeah, the rest of the gaps are over a second, gaining or losing. Keeping my eye on them as I go.
Yeah, is it the gap for P2 and 3 is starting to extend as well? I can't remember. I'm trying to remember my car numbers. Whether yes, Handy is still in second. I couldn't remember if Handy was 28 or 4. I was getting a little bit confused. Of course, would have been nice to have seen Tut involved in this as well, but of course after that spin before the pit stop phase and the drive through, and then the spin after the pit drive through as well, that has dropped him down into P9. This is that battle that you've been mentioning, Trink. It's still going on. Sean Hunt still pretty close behind the back of Johnny Ashley in a Bentley. What's that, about 8 tenths? Yeah, 7.5 tenths behind the two of them.
Also, just another piece of information: the Cameron, who we obviously saw was involved in that fight earlier on, who we saw spin and bonk off quite badly, dropped down quite a few places, but because of other factors has moved back into the original position he was in. But unfortunately it's a 12-second gap, so I don't think we'll see him catch up unless something else catastrophically happens. And with how it's been going, it's possible.
It is not beyond the realms of possibility. Rain on the horizon, sadly, in 10 minutes. Rain to get worse in 30 minutes, so I don't think we're going to see any rain before the end of this one. It would need to be an absolute downpour, in fairness, to really cause any proper kind of jeopardy or anything like that, but we'll make do with what we've got in this one. Ferrari party at the top from Morty Warhol, you're absolutely right.
Top 4 Ferraris,
top
Shahabi.
4, all Ferraris, yeah.
Shahabi the only one separating it, and then Seville P6 with the Jag. But it is a pro top 6, and then AMS all the way down to P14 where we were watching.
Yeah. Good spot. I think we've talked about this before. I think there'll be maybe a bit of a reshuffle in some of those classes. But in fairness, there's been quite a lot of change and chopping and changing in the positions overall. You'd argue, that's a big move from Sean Hunt. A bit of contact between the two, a little bit of bonking, a little bit of door banging.
That AMG just had to sit by and watch and try and not get involved in that, but
yeah,
he really had to move out of his way to make sure nothing happened there.
Yeah, it looked like Hunt just missed his breaking point. Obviously, having that Mercedes, that GT4 of Blunkvist in the mix as well, just meant he maybe lost the sighting of the reference point for his braking marker. Fortunately, though, both of them still pointing in the right direction. As just heard, Ben Brown in P5 in the 6 hours of Bathurst at the moment. So bringing that one in, they've got probably about 10 minutes left, I think you said, based on what you saw earlier. So good showing from the oNiD guys over there. P5, very good result in that, especially at Bathurst. It's almost a case of, I know everyone says it, but to finish first you have to finish. And I feel like Bathurst is a prime example of that, as Ian Hoare still very much glued to the back of that Habibovic DuPont Chevy. In fact, going around the outside, is he? He's going to get a great run into the second chicane.
Just edging out slightly ahead. He's got the inside.
Habibovic's going to hang on the outside. How has he got that stopped?
How did he make that work? A wheel on the grass, almost spilling out into the outside, and then made the corner and the position. Outstanding.
That was incredible.
Especially in that Camaro. That thing does not like to turn.
Exactly. It doesn't like to turn or brake. It goes in a straight line, and that's what it's good at. It's an American car. That was quite something. Really, he made the apex perfectly. It's almost like he was doing a hot lap. It's incredible. Hunt again tries for what feels like about the 13th time to get the move done on Johnny Ashley. They've gotten past Martin Thorpe in the BMW GT4, and they've got Marco L ahead of them into the braking zone. Johnny Ashley doing the perfect move, gets himself up, but oh no, I was going to say, I thought Sean might have to sit behind the McLaren there, but he doesn't. That's potentially going to give Martin Thorpe, I think, a position as well, assuming they're on the same lap. But we're still, as you were, it's still Ashley from Hunt. Closest battle on track at the moment, apart from this one. Thibaut Guertin is very much glued to the back of this Mercedes, Jack Watson. Jack, of course, was that one who got caught up behind, I think it was the Aston Martin of Mark Zarber, wasn't it, who he was caught up with that Aston Martin just kind of coming across the back straight as Watson came past. Oh, takes a little bit of dips a little wheel onto the grass there.
Also an update on Plaza. He now has a light puncture, so pressure loss, I believe that is. Oh, we have a swap for positions. Okay, that's why we have a swap for positions, because Ian missed the corner.
Yeah, good to see him waiting and letting Badam Hubovic get that move back done again.
See, very polite. Thank you very much for the flashing of the lights.
Yeah,
respect.
I'm sure Ian's probably sat there thinking, why did I let off so long? Because now he's a lot further back than he was before.
But carrying on, so Plaza now has a slight pressure loss to their rear left, I would presume. But if it's it would pressure loss, yeah. But so of course the gap from Sherlock is now about 4 seconds. So he's obviously just trying to keep that car going. But the gap to Thorpe is ever decreasing. It's currently 6.5-ish seconds, and I expect to see that drop. But 3 minutes, 2 laps. I think he might have a good chance on this.
Yeah, what's the time as you cross the line? 7.3 seconds. So yeah, a couple of laps. Depends on how Carlos gets caught up in any traffic. In fact, I think he's just about in a little bit of a gap. So he's had a few GT3s pass him, but now he's back into his own bit of clear air. So should be okay. Sedentup at the moment, currently your fastest lap holder, sitting in P9. He's very much on the back of Sergei Folenko in the Sky Tempesta Racing 696 car. They got a nice big gap to Nick Manders behind in P10. So this is one of those where they can afford themselves a little bit of rough and ready fighting. Oh, that's a great run out of Ascari for Sedentup. Gets on the outside as they come down the back straight towards Ascari, towards Parabolica. My apologies. Is he going to have to move down? You'd expect Folenko's just going to send it up the inside. No, he doesn't. So no real kind of battling or real defensive moves from Folenko there, and Tup makes the move, gets himself back up into P8 recovery mode. It's still very much engaged. However, with 2 minutes left of this one, we're looking at 1 lap after this one, because I can see Dixon just going through the second of the Lesmos. He's not going to have a chance to catch up with Zdilzovic, so he's going to have to settle, you would think, for P2 in class, assuming, of course, Folenko doesn't return the favour and get the move done back on him again. So yeah, Dixon going through Ascari now, the 94, little triangle on the track map on the right hand side. So he will be coming on to his final lap when he next crosses the line. He's got a 10-second gap back to Henry Handy, 11 seconds now, so he's really stretching his legs. Handy then got a 2.3 second gap back to Adam Gardner, and then Aidan Chatburn is a further 8 and a bit seconds behind him. Shahabi a little bit further back, and then Seville is relatively close behind, I think. I can't actually see him on the track map. No, he's not, sorry. He's pretty much the entirety of the straight between Lesmo 2 and Ascari behind. So not a huge amount of people too close fighting on the last couple of laps. However, we've still got a little bit to play for with, 50 seconds left. So as you see there, confirmation in the bottom corner of your screen. Final lap of this race, courtesy of the fact that Miles Dixon is onto his final tour of the circuit and gets himself past just one more GT4 before he wraps up this race. As it stands, it will be Dixon who takes the Pro Class win, as we see Marco L taking a little excursion through the first corner. We'll come back and see what's happened here. Hopefully there's been no coming together between anyone else. We can see Vidoni in the background. Oh dear, that's a loan for... Oh my goodness me. So it was Vidoni who got caught up in it.
There was a bit of misdirection there.
Yeah, it was... Yeah, I felt like it was like a dynamo thing or something like that. That was a weird one because it almost looked like the Ferrari went too deep, obviously, as you could quite clearly tell. But then the Chevy of Vidoni just let off the brakes to almost avoid him, and then couldn't avoid Marco L, which was very strange indeed. But luckily, they're at the end of this now, so there's no need to pit for damage because, of course, got 1 lap left. This will be his final tour at the circuit. These two, though, will have 1 more lap to duke it out. They're one of 4 or 5 more cars that will have 1 more lap of this Monza circuit. See a comment from Javier in the chat. So sad Daniel Holm was murdered by a GT3 Plaza as well. Both of them could have give a damn good show in the GT4, says they absolutely could. Hopefully we'll see that next time out. As you see, Miles Dixon comes across that. He's going to slow down massively for some reason. I don't know why he is, unless he's run out of fuel. Oh no, he's letting that GT4 past? I don't know, whatever he's doing. Miles Dixon comes across the line to win round 4 here of the oNiD Multiclass World Cup. It'll be Henry Handy
what he
who
did
comes through. Go on.
Is ensure that Plaza gets P2 and GT4 because Martin Thorpe was behind and has finished the race.
Ah, very clever move from him. So yeah, what we said, Henry Handy will come through in 2nd place. Adam Gardner makes it a Remnant Racing 2-3 and rounds out the podium there. Aidan Chatburn comes through in P4. Alex Shahabi coming through in P5. It's a 6th place in the Jag for Johnny Seville. Good showing from him despite an early coming together with that man who's very much on his tail over the line, Alan Zdilzovic. Sedentup will come through 2nd in AM class, Zdilzovic taking the win in that one. Sergei Folenko coming through in P9 as the rain decides to team down to finish this one off. Nick Manders will round out your top 10 and come out fourth in class.
No.
Just about, if we can. Yep, sorry, my apologies, because that is Matt Holman right the way behind. But no, it looks like they're going to make it the way through as they come through some of that green fog. It's like the Italian version of the Verstappen flares that you see. Ollie Knowles will come through in P12. Johnny Ashley, at the moment, as they come through the final couple of corners, will just about hold on, will he, if he can get over the line in time? Yes, he will, yeah. Takes P13 from Sean Hunt in the end. Colin Cameron comes through in P15. Mike Brown, P16. Leighton Austin, last of the cars on the lead lap. And your GT4, in fact, yeah, of the just GT3s anyway, your GT4 winner will be this man. Luke Sherlock will take the victory in this one as he comes around the final corner of Parabolica. He will take the win in GT4. It's his first win of the season, so he'll be very pleased with that in the oNiD Racing Stronger GT4 AMG. And Carlos Plaza, the aforementioned, will take P2 in the GT4 class. Good showing from him in the end. Fantastic work from him. Of course, a few of those guys getting caught up in accidents at the start of this one. Luckily, after everything kind of settled down, it was all pretty good in the end. We had a couple of incidents early doors. I think probably the weather played a certain part in it, you would argue, but we were blessed with a lot of stuff to keep us busy on, weren't we?
Oh, there is so much that happened, and I didn't even catch all of it.
That's what highlights are for. We'll play a few of them as we wrap up for this evening stream. Thank you to those of you who have tuned in to the stream throughout this evening. Luckily, like I say, you've been blessed with a fantastic race. I feel we've had changeable conditions, we've had incidents, we've had action, we've had overtakes, we've had penalties. I think we've pretty much had everything. We've had every penalty in the book that you can have out of the game, apart from someone being misplaced at the start. We've seen incidents at the start, incidents halfway through, loads of overtaking, and like I say, the change of conditions. That's what I want. I always really, really desperately want to see a changeable conditions race like this, because it's so much better to watch from a strategic point of view than just a standard, like, right, here you go, have a bit of rain and then just pit when you want. You know what I mean? Like, at least you get the chance to have to think about what you've got to do. It makes these guys' lives more difficult, and I'm all for that.
Yeah, I absolutely love the races that require a smart strategy play and working on the fly. Because you don't know the full weather condition. You only know 10 and 30 minutes ahead.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic work from everyone involved, though. So, from us now, I suppose we should probably wrap things up. But let's turn your attention to the next round in a week's time. There's only 8 rounds. I've no idea why I got 10 rounds for. I clearly just want more of it. I want it to carry on forever. That's what I feel like. But next week, on the 13th of August, same time as always on the Sunday night, will be a round 5. We'll be at Paul Ricard for that one. That'll be the last of the 60-minute races of the season. For those of you who aren't aware, the week after that, we'll head to the Indianapolis GP circuit for the first of the final 3 90-minute affairs. On the 27th of August, we head to Silverstone, and then on the final round of the year, or final round of the season, we'll head over to the infamous Spa-Francorchamps circuit for a finale. Again, those last 3 races, all at 90 minutes apiece. So it's going to be slightly different, and again, a little bit more time for us to get loads of action. Trinket, thank you so much for doing, I have to say, an incredible job of keeping an eye on as much of the stuff that you did, because, like I say, speaking from experience of doing this stuff on my side, it is it's very difficult to keep an eye on it, and I think you did a fantastic job, and I think you're seeing that echoed in the chat as well, so thank you very kindly for keeping an eye on everything that we've had to do. I know it would have been a fun job from your end as well, I'm sure. I've been octopus of managing every single accident and incident that happened throughout that last hour of the race.
Well, I very much appreciate it. I always try to do my best and create the best viewing experience. You know, I strive to make the quality look good, and I strive to show what's interesting. I try and talk what's interesting, but I often just have too much brain farts going on. So
I've definitely done all three of them. You're a triple threat in my eyes, mate. Don't you worry. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. For those of you who tuned into the chat, tuned into the stream, or you're watching this back on the VOD, anyone who's been in the chat and everyone who's hit the like button and everything on the stream as well is massively appreciated. But until then, until next week for the oNiD Multiclass World Cup, it is goodbye from me, David Restless. Goodbye from Trinket to Tass, and we will see you guys next week for some more multi-class action. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.